Hey guys, tonight we're slipping through a silk-draped doorway straight into the heart of Edo's most exclusive pleasure quarter, and trust me, you probably won't survive the scandal, at least not without a proper fan to hide behind. Picture lantern light flickering against lacquered screens, the scent of sweet plum wine thick in the air, and the soft rustle of kimonos brushing wooden floors as you step forward. The courtesans here didn't just flutter their fans to cool off. They painted each face with secret codes, turning a humble prop into a mobile confession booth. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, drop a comment with your local location and what time it is where you are so I know who's tuning in live. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You drag your feet through the narrow lantern-lit lanes of Yoshiwara, the licensed quarter established in 1617, a popular hub that even the shogun couldn't resist visiting in secret when politics felt too dull. You hear the distant tinkle of shamisen strings drifting from a tea house, and you pause as a courtesan steps into view, her fan coloring the air with hints of rose and gold. Historians still debate whether this trend began as a way to ward off gossip or to spark it. But one thing's clear, the first painted fans were born from a clever blend of artistry and subterfuge. Legend has it that a particularly daring courtesan, tired of overheard whispers, commissioned a painter to slip a coded poem onto her fan face, an inside joke only her favorite patron could decode. That odd little moment set the stage for a centuries-long tradition of clandestine romance and rebellious artistry. As you step closer, you notice the fan slats are carved from bamboo so thin you can almost see through them, and the paper is oiled mulberry smooth as silk, but sturdy enough to survive a sudden breeze or an overzealous admirer. You remember that sunscreen made from crocodile poop. Well, this paper was rubbed with camphor oil to repel insects. Another weird fact the guides love to mention: a stray cricket might chirp its complaint only to bounce off like a buttered rice cake. You can almost taste the earthy camphor on your tongue. Beneath the painted blossoms, you spot a tiny phoenix, an obscure emblem hinting at a courtesan's rise from ruin. It's stranger than the rumor that some fans were scented with musk so potent it doubled as a dating profile. 3 light jokes later, you realize that in Edo, a fan could cool your face and heat up your gossip feed simultaneously. Your fingertips brush the edge of the fan, and the lacquer crackles under your touch, a secret handshake between past and present. The painter's brush strokes are so fine they look like threads of dawn weaving through night. You inhale the faint aroma of persimmon dye, and somewhere in the courtyard a lantern gutter dampens, sending sparks of orange across your vision. You catch yourself glancing over your shoulder, half expecting a jealous rival to snatch this masterpiece away. After all, fans were the original status symbol before hashtags or influencer deals. As you fold it shut, you feel the soft resistance of hidden hinges designed to keep prying eyes at bay. It's a practical prop and a conversation killer all in one. In the hush that follows, you sense the courtesans slipping into shadow, their painted fans ready to flutter coded invitations or veiled refusals. You lean in, and the storyteller in you whispers, imagine decoding a message hidden beneath a cherry blossom petal, like finding a secret track on your favorite mixtape. Below the ornamental knot, you glimpse the artist's signature, a mark so small that only the initiated could see it. In this first glimpse of Edo's painted fans, you taste the thrill of forbidden knowledge, the hush before a confession, and the weight of every unsent letter. And so, as the lanterns dim further and the night thickens around you, you realize that these painted fans aren't just delicate keepsakes. They are the very pulse of pleasure quarters, carrying hopes, warnings, and whispered dreams from one hand to the next. You step off the narrow boardwalk and into a wider boulevard where the air hums with lantern glow and the scent of incense drifts like a secret invitation. This, you realize, is the Yoshiwara district at its height, a bustling pleasure quarter formally established in 1617 by shogunal decree to contain and regulate entertainment away from the city's stricter quarters. Back then, you might have needed a special red pass tucked in your sleeve just to slip past the guards. Today, you only need decent internet and a good VPN. Just kidding, this story predates digital snooping by a few centuries. As you wander under rows of crimson paper lanterns, each one bearing the crest of a tea house or okiya, you catch the faint crackle of gossip sliding off lacquered walls. The famed Great Fire of 1607 may have raised much of Edo to ash, but Yoshiwara rose again like a phoenix, quite literally inspiring those early painted fans we've already peeked at above, where phoenix motifs hinted at rebirth after ruin. Historians still debate whether that phoenix was meant as a real badge of survival or a theatrical flourish meant to titillate patrons. But either way, it set a precedent here. Tragedy and beauty danced together like reluctant partners. You feel the smooth cobbles under your gaiter as you drift toward a row of high-backed screens. Through the slats, you glimpse courtesans oiran gliding past on raised sandals, their robes trailing like waterfalls of silk. One holds her fan so precisely, it seems suspended in mid-air, a living snapshot of elegance. You remember the bamboo slats of that first fan, so finely carved, you could almost read a poem through the gaps. Here, the artistry has accelerated into full-blown performance art. Fans are no longer mere props. They're the final act in a courtesan's debut. You lean in close enough to catch a whiff of their custom-mixed perfume, a blend of plum blossoms and sandalwood that somehow smells like nostalgia for a time you never lived in. Then a stray breeze lifts a tassel, and you realize you've let out an involuntary ooh, as if you'd just seen the season's hottest mask drop on a modern runway. 3 light jokes later about fan flipping being the original swipe right, about bamboo slats being Edo's answer to Tesla's spider. Your heart races with the thrill of discovery. You trace a glowing line of vermilion across one fan, where an okiya's emblem intertwines with delicate calligraphy, spelling out longing. Beneath the scattering of tiny silver moons suggests nights spent longing for someone's smile. A strange fact floats into your mind. Some fans were treated with foxfire mushrooms, luminescent fungi that made the paint glow faintly under moonlight, turning a simple gesture into a private midnight spectacle. If you ever wondered why courtesans might have had the best backstage glow-up before neon lights existed, that's your answer. You half imagine a midnight rendezvous where the fan is the only star in the sky, flickering soft messages in phosphorescent ink. You reach out to feel the barely there warmth of the paint under your fingertips, except, of course, you don't. That would ruin the lacquer. Instead, you fold it closed with a crisp whisper, like snapping a secret diary shut. As you weave deeper into the quarter, you pass through a gauntlet of lantern-lit stalls, where artisans carve fan handles from whale ivory and sandalwood, sometimes inlaid with mother-of-pearl scenes of kabuki dramas. You realize that even the handle sends a message. A carved wave might signal turbulence in your love life, while a tranquil pond promises serenity. It's like getting a 2-for-1 deal on emotional forecasting without having to buy a magazine subscription. You recall that in the previous part we talked about that first painted Phoenix fan, but here the entire fan is now a layered performance visual poem, tactile accessory, and mood ring rolled into one. Historians still debate whether patrons actually decoded every nuance or simply pretended they did to impress dinner companions. But either way, the more cryptic the message, the more clout it carried. You smirk at the thought of samurai and merchants' chests puffed out beneath their haori, brandishing fans like secret staves of command. Your ears pick up the low hum of gossip slithering through paper screens, punctuated by the clacking of gatta and the occasional soft laugh that drifts down a back alley. You pause by a doorway painted in midnight blue, where a kimono-clad apprentice practices folding fans with swift precision. A strange little demonstration, she manages to flip a closed fan open with a single wrist snap, like a magician revealing a hidden deck of cards, but with way more style. You notice her obi sash is printed with tiny chrysanthemums, another floral code for honesty, and you wonder how many layers of meaning are folded into every knot and pleat. If you think about it, this district is a masterclass in nonverbal communication. Every color slip of silk and rustle of paper carries potential scandal or craving. And you can't help but grin at the irony that in a place famed for voicing desire, the real conversation happens in hushed fan whispers. As you cross the final row of lanterns, you feel the weight of history pressing softly on your shoulders, like the comforting hum of an ancient lullaby. The Yoshiwara bloom wasn't just a time or place, it was an idea, an entire culture built around coded beauty and secret signals. The district's rise reshaped courtesan artistry, elevating simple fans into canvases of clandestine longing and theatrical flair. You picture yourself tucking a hand-painted fan into your sleeve, carrying a message meant for one set of eyes, and wonder what secrets you'd hide if you were alive back then. But for now, you tuck the memory into your pocket like a well-worn token ready for the next step of our journey. And so, with the soft echo of sandalwood-scented laughter fading behind you, you prepare to follow the painted fan's trail deeper into Edo's hidden heart. You cradle the fan in your hands, feeling the slight resistance of its lacquer as you lift it toward your face. Above, we've already wandered through Yoshiwara's lantern-lit romance. Now it's time to decode the chromatic whispers hiding in those painted petals. Imagine a palette not just slapped on paper, but meticulously chosen to signal everything from playful flirtation to solemn farewells. The courtesans of Edo didn't pick a color because it looked pretty. They selected it like a modern-day influencer, picking the perfect filter for an Instagram post, except with way higher stakes and zero retakes. As you tilt the fan to catch the morning light, you see that vermilion red wasn't just a trendy shade for firecrackers. It shouted desire so loudly that passers-by could almost hear a drumbeat echoing through narrow streets. Meanwhile, a soft indigo wash hinted at pensive melancholy, the color you'd choose if your heart was heavy, but you still wanted to look fabulous. You drag your thumb across the edge and feel the paint's barely there texture, a subtle bump that betrays careful layering. Historians still debate whether red was truly reserved for declarations of love or if some daring courtesans used it simply because it clashed gorgeously with their pale white makeup, but the rumor mill insists it was coded communication at its finest. Your eyes drift to a fan painted in pale gold flecks interspersed with muted charcoal strokes. Gold symbolized wealth and status, an unspoken invitation to patrons of high rank. Think of it as Edo's version of a VIP backstage pass. You inhale the faint shimmer of metal-based pigment, and there's a slight metallic taste at the back of your throat, like licking a coin stamped with the Shogun seal. You remember above when a phoenix motif hinted at rebirth after the Great Fire. Well, here, gold might have hinted at new fortunes rising from ashes. Oddly specific, sure, but in an era where the 1707 Hoei earthquake shook Edo to its core, flashes of gold could lift a courtesan's spirits and boost her bookings. Strange fact, some pigments were even mixed with crushed eggshells for extra sheen. So if you ever thought your mirror was smudged, blame it on a layer of dinosaur ancestor calcium. You flutter the fan, and the interplay of color catches your peripheral vision like fleeting whispers. You nearly smirk as you recall the first fan you held, the one with its secret phoenix. Now, you're looking at mood rings on paper, emerald greens for hope, dusty rose for tenderness, jet black for a discreet farewell gesture. A whispered legend says that completely black fans were used to signal an abrupt end to a courting session. A polite thanks, but no thanks, that could rival any modern-day ghosting. 3 light jokes later about black being Edo's original do not disturb, about rose being the like button of courtship, about emerald green being the follow me hue. You realize that every sweep of the fan was a masterclass in nonverbal drama. As you explore further, you spot a delicate wash of lavender reserved for intellectual banter and poetry readings. A fragrant ghost of wisteria seems to cling to the surface, teasing at the fine aroma fading into the humid air. You press the fan closer, inhaling a breeze of nostalgia for a world where color itself was conversation. You might expect lavender to come from imported dyes. Nope. It was ground powdered from native wisteria petals and bound with rice paste. The process took weeks, making a single fan a true labor of love. If that doesn't impress you, well, imagine someone today handcrafting a scented candle for every tweet they send. Ludicrous, yet oddly beautiful. Your fingers trace the outline of a small cluster of peony petals painted in blush pink. Peonies signified prosperity, but also bashful humility. An interesting combo, like someone bragging about their startup success and then immediately apologizing for the humble brag. It's rumor-fueled artistry at its best. Historians still debate whether the peony's dual symbolism inspired courtesans to adopt the motif for its complexity, or simply because it looked swoon-worthy next to their hairstyles. Regardless, you can't deny the charm of a floral code that says, "I'm successful, but don't worry, I'm still approachable." Above, the bamboo handles carved from whale ivory inlaid with mother-of-pearl seemed almost over-the-top luxurious. But here, color took center stage. You riffle through the fan slats and notice how the pigments interact, a streak of vermilion next to a brush of indigo, creating a purple haze that screams mystery. It's like mixing your deepest secrets and your wildest desires into one stunning gradient. You tilt the fan so that the shade shifts, and for a moment, you swear it winks back at you as if the fan itself has a mischievous personality. Every color choice carried risk. Use too much red and you'd be branded as too forward. Lean heavily on indigo, and patrons might think you mourning a lost love, even if you'd never met someone worth crying over. Imagine the mental gymnastics. You had to be an artist, a flirt, and a code breaker all at once. You sense the tension in this delicate balance, the kind of pressure that would make a modern influencer envy the simplicity of a well-placed meme. Strange fact, some courtesans carried backup fans in plain white to counteract any misinterpretation, like hitting a panic button when a text goes wrong. Talk about fan flexibility. The air around you shimmers with possibility as you tuck one fan away and lift another painted in vibrant turquoise. Turquoise was rare imported from Korea or mined in Japan's northern provinces, and it spoke of distant voyages and exotic allure. You feel a tiny spark of wanderlust as though flipping the fan could teleport you across the sea. You might be standing here in Yoshiwara, but every brushstroke hinted at worlds beyond Edo's walls. A light joke bubbles up. Imagine telling your friends you bought a cheap souvenir fan, but really, it was coded to summon a long-lost lover. Slightly over-dramatic, yet the imagery sticks. As you fold the fan closed with a satisfying snap, you realize that color in Edo was more than decoration. It was the very currency of emotion. You run your fingertip across the seam where pigments meet, and the whisper of paper feels like a hushed secret, almost audible if you listen hard. You can't help but feel a tingle, as if the fan has transferred a trace of its coded message into your skin. Before moving on, take a moment to imagine how you'd use color if you lived in Edo. Would you dare to splash vermilion across half a fan, or would you stick with the safe pastels while you mastered the art form? Historians still debate whether courtesans truly adhered to a rigid chromatic code or improvised to fit their own personalities. But one thing's certain, every fan was a masterstroke of silent communication. And as you tuck away these chromatic secrets, you feel a gentle whisper in your mind. The world of painted fans is a living, breathing tapestry of color, desire, and unspoken longing, waiting for your next silent gesture. You lift the next fan, its surface blossoming with painted petals that seem to flutter in the half-light, and you realize that each flower here is more than decoration. It's a silent sonnet. Above, we slid past chromatic whispers. Now we're plunging into the lush world of floral codes where a single plum blossom could shout, "I admire your resilience," and a cluster of peonies might murmur, "I treasure your friendship." Imagine scrolling through your favorite social feed and choosing a flower emoji instead of a like button. Edo Courtesans were the original emoji connoisseurs, swapping delicate blooms for tender swipes in a game of secret courtship. You cradle the fan and study the arrangement, a branch of pale pink cherry blossoms arcing across the paper, their petals poised mid-fall. Cherry blossoms, or sakura, symbolize life's fleeting beauty, a poetic nod to the 1615 siege of Osaka that reshaped the Tokugawa era's power dynamics. Just as sakura bloom then fade, so too did fortunes rise and fall during that tumultuous siege. Historians still debate whether florists in Edo deliberately invoked sakura to remind patrons of life's impermanence, or whether the motif simply caught on because it looked gorgeous against a kimono. Either way, when a courtesan wielded a sakura-adorned fan, she was offering a wink at both beauty and melancholy, like sending a dramatic soundtrack clip to accompany your selfie. Your fingertips graze the tiny yellow stamens painted at the blossom centers, and you almost expect to hear a faint hum of drone-like pollinators buzzing in the distance. Strange fact, some painters mixed crushed bee pollen into their yellow pigments to achieve the exact hue and faintly attract curious insects. So if you ever found a bee hiding in your sleeve, don't panic. It might just be looking for its long-lost relatives. You crack a light laugh at the image of a courtly bee trying to decode its own family tree. Next to the sakura, a spray of red camellias leans into the breeze of your fan flick. In Edo, camellias symbolized deep longing, but also a note of caution. The flower heads droop when they wilt, and some tales say that showing camellias could signal an impending farewell. Cue your first light joke. Camellias were Edo's original red receipts. Once you saw them drooping, you knew you weren't getting that second meeting. You lift a brow as you fold and unfold, testing how the camellia's crimson hue pops under lantern light. Below the camellias, you spot a cluster of chrysanthemums, their petals painted in muted gold. Chrysanthemums stood for longevity and were prized by the imperial court, their connection stretching back to the 8th century chrysanthemum seals on official scrolls. Strange fact, some chrysanthemum fans were rumored to have petals dusted with ground mica, giving them a subtle sparkle that caught starlight, an Edo-era version of glitter makeup minus the cleanup. You can practically hear courtesans winking, yes, this fan doubles as a nightlight. 3 light jokes later about fans doubling as disco balls about flowers, as insider cocktail garnishes about Edo's glitterati. You pass the fan back to your imaginary Okia host, who tucks it away with a graceful flourish. You drag your attention to a segment painted with wild orchids, their slender petals undulating like silk ribbons. Orchids in Edo were rare and associated with elegance and refined taste. Unlike common grasses, orchids thrived in hidden mountain caves, making them an aristocratic symbol. Think of them as Edo's version of a limited edition sneaker drop. Historians still debate whether courtesans personally foraged for these blooms or simply commissioned mountain ascetics to send them in bamboo containers. But the resulting bouquets on fans were undeniable status symbols. As you flip the fan again, a shy sprig of irises meets your gaze, their deep violet almost luminescent against the pale paper. Irises conveyed faith and courage. A courtesan might choose them when hoping a patron would remain loyal through the next quarter's heavy taxes. You inhale, imagining the scent of iris leaves crushed by passing samurai, and it tickles your nose with a hint of wet grass and something floral, like stepping barefoot into a dew-kissed garden at dawn. A subtle wash of wisteria trails across the fan's curve, its drooping lilac clusters painted with ivory accents. Wisteria symbolized steadfast love, but also melancholy, since its blossoms hang heavy under their own weight. Strange fact, artisans sometimes bound wisteria pigments with aged sake leaves for a translucent purple effect, so some fans smelled faintly of wine, making every gentle breeze feel like an invitation to sip sake together. You smirk and joke that these courtesans had fans and happy hour all in one. Your mind drifts to the small white plum blossoms near the fans' guard sticks. These early blooming plums heralded perseverance through winter's chill, a nod to resilience amid hardship. Legend says that when the Spring Festival in 1688 introduced plum viewing parties in Edo Castle grounds, courtesans responded by painting their fans with plum motifs to align themselves with the season's optimism. Historians still debate whether the plums were a genuine homage or merely a marketing gimmick to ride the festival's popularity. But the result was a floral synergy that kept fans front and center in seasonal festivities. You press the fan against your cheek, and the paper's texture feels smooth yet slightly toothy, like licking a stiff greeting card but without the calories. A light joke bubbles up fans were Edo's paleo greeting cards, floral messages you could carry instead of mailing. You tucked that away because, although you love puns, these floral motifs wielded real power. Finally, your eyes settle on the delicate sprig of wisteria, again paired with a tiny painted scroll hanging among the petals. That scroll often bore a single character, I love, rendered so minuscule that only the savviest patron could spot it. It's like a digital watermark hidden in a JPEG, except you needed an eagle eye and probably a magnifying glass to decode the sentiment. You remember above how poets etched verses into fans. Here, the entire poem could be compressed into a single glyph. 3 light jokes later about micro-texting about fans, as the original NFTs about needing a magnifying app on your smartphone, you fold the fan shut, marveling at how much meaning vanishes with a single snap. As you slip the fan back into its silk sheath, you feel the gentle weight of centuries of unspoken dialogue. These floral motifs weren't random garden parties painted for show. They were a complex language, a code book of emotion passed from hand to hand in the hush of Edo's pleasure quarters. You brush your fingertips along the silk still scented with that faint Sacalese violet, and you can almost hear a distant shamisen whispering accompaniment to every fold and flutter. And so, as the petals on your painted fan lull you into a realm where flowers speak louder than words, you realize that in Edo, a single cherry blossom bloom was enough to rewrite an entire conversation. These floral codes endured through seasons, sieges, and scandals, carrying the weight of longing, honor, and hope across every rustle of paper and brush stroke of pigment. You slip the fan from its silk sheath and unfurl it in one smooth motion, revealing lines of delicate calligraphy winding across the oiled mulberry paper like a secret river. Above, we explored petals and pigments. Now you're tracing the pale gray strokes of a waka poem that reads more like a lover's heartbeat than ink on paper. During the Genroku era's artistic renaissance, 1688 to 1704, courtesans and their patrons developed a taste for these miniature verses, treating each fan as both gallery and gramophone for whispered sonnets. Historians still debate whether these inscriptions served as practical codes for clandestine rendezvous, or if they simply added an air of refined elegance, but either way, every brushstroke carried weight. You bring the fan closer and catch the faint scent of aged rice paste mingled with ink, a warm, almost caramel aroma that tingles your senses like a vintage paperback. Strange fact, some poets ground their charcoal with the soot of pine knots from castle watchfires, believing it imbued their words with the crackle of loyalty and vigilance. Imagine texting you up in invisible ink that only appears under lantern glow. That's the kind of playful undercurrent you feel here. You smile at the thought of Edo's original red receipts, where a hidden verse might flicker into view only when the paper warmed against a lover's palm. 3 light jokes later, about fans as early email attachments, about ghosting being literal if the ink vanished, about needing a magnifying glass app. You realize this was high-stakes poetry in motion. Your fingertip follows the flow of the first couplet, where the poet laments a moon waning behind plum trees, equating each lunar phase with moments apart from their beloved. You almost hear the soft sigh of that crescent dipping below the horizon, an ASMR whisper that makes the hairs on your arm stand up. The lines reference the 1703 Genroku earthquake, which shook Edo's foundations and hearts alike. Patrons and poets alike wove that tremor into their verses, a shared trauma turned into art. You sense the poet's pulse in each stroke, a fleeting moment captured like a dropped fan on a marbled floor. As you shift the fan, another verse emerges, penned in a tighter hand so small it could be mistaken for a crease in the paper. This couplet speaks of plum wine sweetening sorrow, a nod to the 1657 Great Fire's aftermath, when survivors toasted their scars with whatever remained in chipped Sakasuki cups. Historians still debate whether those toasts were genuine expressions of resilience or staged morale-boosting spectacles orchestrated by city officials. But the imagery stuck fan poems became liquid memoirs, each syllable distilled like the finest shochu. You lean in, practically tasting the brine of tears mixed with liquor lingering in the paper's pores. Your thumb brushes a faint watermark beneath the ink, a stylized sakura logo signifying the okiya where the poem originated. Courtesans often commissioned local literati to compose these micro-epics, turning their fans into portable salons of wit and emotion. A strange fact tickles the back of your mind. Some poets mixed mica powder into their ink to make certain lines shimmer under torchlight, so verses glinted like constellations when the room dimmed. You crack a soft laugh at the notion of a fan doubling as a private planetarium, guiding eyes to hidden stars. 3 light jokes later, about wink and glow messages, about cosmic DMs, about needing astro filters, you fold the fan gently, careful not to erase a single glimmer. You press the fan flat against your palm and notice tiny numeric marks inked along the spine chapter markers, in effect dividing the poetic sequence into secret stanzas. Patrons familiar with the code would count verses cueing responses like, "Meet me here at verse 3 without uttering a syllable." It's fan theater at its finest, a silent script running in the background of every flutter. You recall above how florals and colors spoke volumes. Here words themselves become clandestine actors on a miniature stage. A sudden breeze from a nearby open window makes the characters dance across the paper's sheen, and you imagine a courtesan pausing mid-gesture as the poem winks at her admirer. You inhale the faint musk of sandalwood mixed into the ink's binding agent, another quirky detail. Some scribes added fragrant woods so lovers would recognize the author's perfume signature. Historians still debate whether this was clever branding or simply a distraction technique to mask inferior ink. But to you, it feels like unlocking an augmented reality scent trail straight to Edo's hidden corners. Your gaze drifts to the guard sticks, where an inscription in gold leaf spells the poem's title in tiny kana. The metalsmith who laid that gilding used a blend of gold and copper dust, giving the letters a warm glow that shifted in candlelight, like turning your phone screen brightness up without squinting. Strange fact, rumors say a few lavish fans used actual gold leaf, harvested from melted coin seized during tax raids, so fans literally carried the weight of Edo's hidden coffers. You can't help but laugh at the idea of fans doubling as piggy banks for poetic messages. Folding the fan closed, you feel the reassuring click of lacquered slats clicking together a punctuation mark on the fan's literary performance. You imagine slipping it into an obi pocket, then later unfolding it to reveal a verse that says, "I await your step at midnight's garden." It's like scheduling a secret meeting with a single brushstroke, no carrier pigeon required. You lean back and think about how in the previous parts color and flower spoke in code. Here, language itself becomes the ultimate hush-hush accessory. The final couplet, barely visible on the reverse side, offers a short blessing. May petals fall softly where our shadows meet. The poet's brush is so light, you wonder whether you've imagined entire lines. It's like catching a ghost, an indelible impression that vanishes if you blink too hard. You press the fan shut and tuck it in your sleeve, feeling the reassuring weight of those whispered words against your wrist. And so, with every poetic inscription you've traced tonight, you're reminded that storytellers don't need stage lights or loud applause. They only need a quiet fan to carry their biggest secrets. Each inscription is a tender echo, a snapshot of longing that outlasts eras waiting patiently to be discovered by someone willing to lean close, watch the ink glimmer, and listen to the story hidden in every curve of those elegant strokes. You slip the painted fan from your sash and let it hang open between your fingertips, the gentle hiss of its slats cutting through the hush of the tea house corridor. Above, we've wandered through floral sonnets and clandestine verses. Now you're stepping into the smoky half-light of secret rendezvous, where fans weren't just pretty props, but the quiet matchmakers of Edo's most whispered romances. Imagine a modern dating app, where every swipe broadcasts a hidden code. Courtesans and patrons here used fans to spark love affairs without uttering a single word. You stand just inside the sliding door, its paper panels glowing amber with lantern light. A courtesan leans back against a lacquered pillar, her fan pressed against her cheek, hiding half her smile. You watch as she tilts it ever so slightly, handle pointed down, ribs spread at a 90-degree angle, a signal meaning, I seek a private conversation. Patrons eager for such invitations memorize these gestures like a secret handshake. Historians still debate whether this language of fans developed organically among courtesans or was a clever invention by tea masters seeking to entertain elite guests. But either way, it stirred more excitement than any public announcement could. You remember when we traced petals and words. Now the fan's position is its own message. When held aloft at eye level, it whispered, admire me from afar. Held low at chest height, it hinted, approach me. Folded and tucked under the right arm, it meant, I appreciate your attention. You follow each gesture like decoding a dance flip, fan tap tilt, and suddenly you're part of a silent conversation more intoxicating than the richest plum wine. A strange fact drifts into your mind. Some okia inserted a tiny caged cricket into the fan's handle, so when you opened it slowly, you'd hear a faint, genuine chirp, nature's own pickup line. You chuckle at the thought of a startled patron trying to figure out if the romance came from the courtesan or a bug in the wood. You lean forward on the raised wooden platform, feeling the grain beneath your fingertips, and sense the faint aroma of incense drifting through a crack above the door. The air carries a hint of sandalwood smoke mixed with the delicate perfume of cherry blossom oil from the fan surface. You can almost taste the sweet tension as if every inhalation draws you closer to a secret rendezvous under moonlight. 3 light jokes pop into your head about fans being Edo's original wingmen, about sashimi-scented pickup lines, about needing a tutorial playlist for fan flirting 101. But you tuck them away because in this moment, nothing feels more captivating than the hush. The courtyard beyond is cloaked in shadows, but you glimpse a lantern's flicker on sliding panels. A patron stands nearby, his hand hovering over his fan hesitation, written in the way his fingers twitch. He waits for the courtesan to signal. She fans herself twice in rapid succession. That's her way of saying, meet me where the bamboo shadows play. He nods imperceptibly and drifts into the garden fan, held like a map to guide him. You follow their footsteps, noticing how gravel crunches under their sandals in rhythm with every breath, a private soundtrack to forbidden longing. As you round a moss-carpeted corner, the night air carries the scent of dewy grass and jasmine. The courtesan gently lowers her fan so its edge brushes the Torai gate's wooden beam, a discreet marker of the meeting point. The patron steps closer, fans brushing ever so lightly, and you hear the faint click of lacquered ribs aligning. It's like the soft snap of 2 hearts syncing in Morse code. A curious thrill skitters up your spine. Fans can touch, they can tap, they can brush, each movement an unspoken invitation to lean in to risk confession. You crouch behind a bamboo screen and watch as the courtesan slowly closes her fan and hands it to him, the gesture more intimate than any whispered vow. He palms it gently, turning it in his hands, and you notice a single petal painted on the back camellia red, signifying longing. He offers his own fan. In return, its indigo wash marked with a tiny chrysanthemum for loyalty. You almost gasp at the exchange, a silent promise sealed with delicate craftsmanship. Three light jokes dance at your lips about fans doubling as secret love contracts, about needing two-factor authentication for romance, but you bite them back, savoring the scene's hush. You remember above when poets wedged mica into ink to make words shimmer. Here courtesans and patrons wedged their emotions into paper so subtle that only those fluent in fan flirting could read the lines. Historians still debate whether fans ever truly sealed lifelong unions or if they simply fueled a marketplace of fleeting encounters. But either way, the drama they inspired echoed through Edo's corridors like the final note of a shamisen. Eyes flicking to the night sky, you see a sliver of moon peeking through bamboo leaves. Soft breezes stir the fan in the patron's hand, exposing a hidden fold where a tiny paper note was tucked in a dress, scrawled in charcoal, promising a midnight reunion by the koi pond. You crack a grin at the ingenuity, many envelopes sewn into the guard sticks, no carrier pigeon required. A strange fact surfaces: some fans contained hidden compartments lined with silk gussets just big enough for a single slip of paper, a lover's note so discreet it could survive the most cursory pat-down by jealous rivals. You slip further into the scene, drawn by the faint murmur of water trickling in the garden pool. The courtesan traces a path on the fan's paper, one slow, deliberate stroke that outlines the path from the pavilion to the koi pond. It's a hand-drawn map of desire, as precise and gentle as any modern GPS, but far more romantic. You follow her strokes with your eyes, picturing petals drifting across the stone pathway like red confetti. The fan becomes a miniature landscape, a private stage for their unfolding drama. A sudden breeze rattles the bamboo leaves above, and you catch the rustle of their exchanged fans clacking together, a duet of lacquer against lacquer that sounds like a heartbeat. You lean in, breathing in the mingled scents, incense, jasmine, camphor, cedar, from the screens splitting slightly in the humidity. It's an ASMR moment that tingles down your neck, reminding you that romance isn't always loud. Sometimes it's the softest whisper pressing against your earlobe. You swallow and stand brushing the dirt from your knees. The lovers glide out of view, fans closed in a delicate embrace. A light laugh bubbles up as you realize the fan-flirting ritual could fill as many pages as the world's greatest romances. Only here, the entire script unfolds in the waggle of a hand. You fold your own fan closed with a gentle snap, the sound echoing in the silence like a benediction. As you step back into the corridor, the lantern light warms your face, and you carry with you the memory of their silent confessions. Fans showed when to lean in, where to meet, and how to whisper devotion without ever speaking a word. They were courtesans' wingmen and patrons' credentials, all rolled into thin slats of bamboo and paper. Each flick, tap, and fold was a line in an unspoken screenplay of the heart, rich with promise, danger, and delight. And so, having traced the clandestine love liaisons of Edo's pleasure quarters, you tuck that painted fan back into your sash. You carry with you the hush of stolen moments, the flicker of lantern-lit vows, and the gentle hum of cricket songs carried within the handle. In a world where words could betray you, fans held your secret safe and sometimes, just sometimes, guided you straight to an awaiting heart. You cradled the fan with cautious reverence its painted surface, now bearing traces of soot and ash-colored washes that seemed to shimmer in the lantern glow. Above you watched lovers exchange clandestine gestures. Now you're witnessing how the great fire of Mereki in 1657 transformed fan artistry into a canvas of resilience and rebirth. Imagine standing amid charred timbers and drifting embers, then lifting a fan that captures both the devastation and the phoenix-like hope rising from the ashes. Edo's original Keep Calm and Carry On moment painted stroke by stroke. You remember stepping through Yoshiwara's lantern-lit lanes in earlier parts, but now you can almost smell the acrid tang of smoke on the air, mingling with the familiar scent of sandalwood and plum blossoms. The fire raged for 3 days, consuming over 60% of the city and leaving tens of thousands homeless. An event so cataclysmic that entire neighborhoods vanished overnight. In the aftermath, courtesans and artists turned to fans as mournful diaries and symbols of regeneration, incorporating motifs of charred bamboo reborn in fresh green shoots. You gently tilt the fan, watching the ghostly charcoal background peel away to reveal jade-colored sprigs, a visual metaphor for life persisting even through ruin. Historians still debate whether these ash-infused pigments were practical attempts to reuse materials or deliberate artistic choices meant to remind patrons of collective suffering. Some say artists ground burned roofing tiles into gray pigments to capture the fire's raw intensity. Others insist they imported expensive charcoal from Kyoto to achieve deeper contrasts. Either way, the result was hauntingly beautiful fans that carried the weight of tragedy, yet whispered promises of tomorrow. 3 light jokes. Later, you half-joke that Edo's first eco-friendly campaign was reuse your ruins. You imagine a courtesan offering a smoky, scented fan fragrance. You muse that fans might have doubled as many charcoal sketches. You fold the fan closed with a soft click, mindful of the stories etched into its fibers. You run your thumb along a band of dark gray paint flecked with tiny white dots, ash particles captured in lacquer. Those speckles weren't accidental. Artisans deliberately sprinkled mica into the mixture so that under torchlight it would glitter like embers dying out. Strange fact, a few fans even carried real slivers of burned cedar embedded beneath the paper, so that fans crackled softly when fanned, mimicking the sound of smoldering wood. You can practically hear the whisper of dying flames every time you flick the fan open, an eerie ASMR moment that sends a shiver down your spine. Across the fan span, a phoenix rises in bold vermilion, and gold leaf wings unfurled against the ashen backdrop. This mythical rebirth motif took center stage after the Mereki fire, offering a potent symbol of Edo's capacity to rebuild. Patrons were drawn to these phoenix fans as talismans of good fortune, and courtesans wore them like battle standards in the ongoing fight to heal their homes. You watch the phoenix's feathers catch the light, the gold shimmering like molten metal, an extravagant flourish that suggests we've seen the worst, and now we rise higher than before. You lean closer and sense a faint texture beneath your fingertips, where the gold leaf was applied in overlapping scales. Artisans squeezed fermented rice paste through fine brushes to adhere the leaf, then gently burnished it with deer horn tools to achieve that burnished glow. It's like running your hand over the city's resurrection brushstroke by brushstroke. You let out a quiet laugh at the thought that Edo's version of urban renewal came stamped on a handheld fan, no engineers required. Below the phoenix, you spot delicate tendrils of green shoots curling around burnt bamboo ribs. Those bamboo handles survived the fire's heat, emerging as charred skeletons that artists highlighted with lacquered veins to evoke both vulnerability and strength. You trace the lacquer's sheen and almost expect the bamboo to flex beneath your grip as if recoiling from memory of the blaze. A strange fact surfaces: some courtesans insisted their fans be bathed in spring water so that the bamboo would swell ever so slightly, sealing in ashes as a talisman against future disasters. Imagine that carrying a dried piece of disaster around as your personal good luck charm. You recall above how floral code spoke of seasons. Here, the fan's flora shifted to represent cycles of destruction and renewal. Tiny plum blossoms painted in faint pink peak from charcoal-hued branches symbolizing perseverance through hardship. Legend says that after the fire, plum trees in Edo Castle gardens sprouted blossoms within weeks, a botanical miracle that inspired artists to capture those first faint blooms on fans. Their petals seemed to glow against soot-washed paper like beacons of hope dancing in the gloom. You fold and unfold the fan, slowly savoring each blossom's emergence against the smoky canvas. In the corner, a tiny inscription in fine black kanji reads, Mereki Rebirth, but it's so small that an untrained eye could miss it entirely. That was intentional, a hidden dedication to those who rebuilt from rubble, only legible to patrons who knew the story or loyally collected these commemorative fans. Historians still debate whether this inscription was an early form of fan branding or a sincere ode to survival. But either interpretation underscores its power. You smirk at the idea of Edo's first limited edition collectibles. Only those present during the fire received these fans as tokens of gratitude from grateful courtesans. A faint citrus scent drifts from the fan surface, another unexpected detail. After the fire, artisans began infusing fans with yuzu peel oil, not only to mask smoke odors, but to symbolize cleansing and renewal. You bring the fan close and inhale deeply. Bright, tart notes cut through the soot memories, leaving a crisp reminder that life goes on. 3 light jokes ping in your mind. You joke about Edo's original scented candle trend, about yuzu fan fusion spa treatments, about using a smoky scented fan as an avant-garde perfume, but you tuck them away, letting the aroma speak for itself. You notice how the fan's edge is trimmed with a copper wire twisted into a pattern reminiscent of dancing flames. Over time, that copper oxidized to verdigris, adding a patina that deepened the fan's story. It's like time layered its own brushstrokes onto the artwork, enriching the narrative without a single additional stroke of pigment. You trace the wire's cool ridge, marveling at how close the metal's green hue comes to the shoots painted above, bridging real corrosion and artistic depiction. As you fold the fan for the last time, you feel its weight resonate in your hand, a blend of civilizations meeting catastrophe, of artisans and courtesans adapting under pressure. You might have begun with romance and intrigue, but now you hold a chronicle of survival, a portable monument to Edo's indomitable spirit. The fan's journey from ash to artistry reminds you that even the darkest moments can give rise to beauty more luminous than before. You tuck the fan carefully into its silk pouch, feeling the roughness of crepe weave against the lacquered ribs. In the hush of the corridor, you carry with you the echo of roaring flame, the shimmer of gold phoenix wings, and the vibrant green of new bamboo shoots defying ruin. Each painted fan from post-Mereki Edo is more than an accessory. It's a testament to human tenacity and the belief that from ashes we can always rebuild better, brighter, and bolder. You slip into the shadowed corridors of Edo Castle, where sliding screens echo with hushed footsteps, and the scent of oiled cedar mingles with distant incense. Above, you've witnessed lovers and artists weave silent messages with blossoms and ink. Now you're stepping into the inner sanctum of power, where samurai and high-ranking officials transformed painted fans into conduits of political patronage and coded influence. Imagine replacing today's leaked emails with lacquered ribs inscribed with the crest of a favored daimyo fans. Became the original DMs for court intrigue, fluttering secrets across tatami mats with the finesse of a ninja's throwing star. You trail along corridors lit by square lanterns bearing the Tokugawa mon, each halo of light revealing courtiers bowing before a lacquered dais. Under the Sankenkotai system established by Shogun Tokugawa Iemitsu in the 1630s to tether regional lords to Edo daimyo, families were required to alternate residence between their home provinces and the capital. During those long stays, they secretly vied for influence over the shogun's council, and fans provided the perfect discreet channel. A turquoise fan painted with a pheasant crest might indicate allegiance to the Matsudaira clan. A crimson fan edged in gold leaf signified a veiled request for a shogunal favor. You can almost feel the tension crackling in the air. Imagine watching stock tickers flicker across a trader's screen. Except here, every fan flick carries weighty political currency. You approach a raised alcove where a retainer presents a fan to his lord. The fan's guard sticks bear a tiny inlaid crest of hollyhock leaves, the aoimon of the Tokugawa, while the painted surface is a wash of gray-green heralding steadfast loyalty. A whispered legend says that courtiers trained in fan parlor could stand across a crowded audience hall and convey multi-line directives without uttering a word. You lean in close enough to catch the faint scent of camphor oil rubbed into the paper to repel insects and snooping spies. Strange fact, some officials even dusted fans with a pinch of arsenic-laced lacquer so that any would-be snooper who handled the fan recklessly would be too unsettled to reveal what they'd read Edo's original "Don't touch that" warning label. You stifle a chuckle at the thought of dosing rival spies via a love note prop and 3 light jokes later about courtiers binge-scrolling on fan codes about fans doubling as poison darts about needing an anti-spoof app. You let the fan slip closed with a soft click. The alcove's tatami mats feel springy beneath your knees as you settle in to observe. A thin draft drifts down the corridor, carrying the clean, slightly bitter tang of cedar and the whisper of distant bamboo chimes. A samurai enters bowing low his wide-sleeved kimono, brushing the floor. He produces a fan, painted with plum blossoms and a hidden inscription on the back, "Grant my petition at dawn." You note how the handle's ribs are carved from imported Zelkova wood, rare and prized for its resilience, signifying both wealth and grave urgency. Historians still debate whether this practice grew organically from courtesan fan culture or was deliberately co-opted by shogunal advisors to streamline agenda setting. But by the Genroku era, fan-driven diplomacy was as common as shared tea. You recall the Shimabara Rebellion of 1637, a popular, if bloody, uprising by disenfranchised Christians and Ronin that shook the shogunate's foundations and led to stricter visa-like controls on foreign faiths. After the revolt, the shogunate enforced tighter protocols among Christian daimyo, confiscating foreign correspondence. As a workaround, these lords resorted to painted fans as smuggling devices for sensitive orders. You shiver at the thought of coded commands hidden beneath cherry blossom petals, slipping into inspection hands that might erupt at any moment. It's like sending encrypted messages via a paper airplane, high stakes and zero margin for error. 3 light jokes later about Christian daimyo fan bootlegging about fans, as Edo's contraband drones about needing fan VPN, you fold your own fan as though folding a secret treaty. In the distance, a cluster of officials gathers around a low table strewn with rice wine cups and wooden trays of nibbles. The air hums with low laughter and clink of porcelain. One minister eyes his rival's fan painted in midnight blue with stylized cranes. Cranes symbolize longevity and lofty status. So presenting such a fan was tantamount to flattering an enemy into staying silent on past slights. You imagine modern senators swapping gilded swag at state dinners, except here the swag spelled out the silent steel in delicate strokes. A strange fact surfaces. Some fans were lined internally with deer hide to deaden sound, allowing courtiers to lean in and whisper through the fan's ribs without being overheard, a built-in soundproofing system devised long before office phone booths. You grin at the notion of fans offering noise-canceling modes for clandestine appeasements. Your momentary respite ends as a bell tolls an all-clear signal that the shogun's morning court is about to convene. You stand silk sleeve catching on the tatami edge and brush a mote of dust from your fan's lacquer. In the next chamber, you'll witness the formal audience, but here in the unlit corridor, the true deals are brokered by fan-bearing emissaries. Each flicker of a fan at the hallway's end could confirm a promotion, betray a conspiracy, or secure a lucrative land grant. You inhale deeply, tasting the faint, coppery tang of the castle's old nails and the sweet undernote of plum oil used to scent the fan, a reminder that in Edo's political theater, pleasure and power were always intertwined. You drift forward, catching snatches of whispered schedules. Meet at dusk by the stone bridge, seal the papers at dawn's first light. Remember our debt. Each phrase is slipped into the wood and paper, delivered without scribe or squire. You can't help but smirk. Fans were Edo's original instant messaging service, minus the buffering wheel. 3 light jokes later about needing unlimited fan data, about read receipts etched in gold leaf, about connectivity issues. When it rained too hard, you close your fan with a reverent snap. Before you exit, you pause at a lacquered pillar, where a lone attendant polishes a stack of official fans. He dips each in safflower oil to preserve pigments, then inspects the crests under candlelight. You notice one fan bears a tiny handprint in the corner, an informal seal used by samurai when illiterate retainers needed proof of authenticity. It's like a fingerprint sticker on a courthouse document. Historians still debate whether that handprint was a personal signature or a talisman warding off betrayal. But either way, it underlines how fans carried far more than breeze. They carried binding commitments. As you step through the large oak doors into the courtyard beyond, moonlight spills across gravel paths lined with sculpted pines. The hush of nocturnal cicadas drifts up, and you realize that even now painted fans remain in service of power, tucked into sleeves of officials negotiating with foreign envoys displayed at clandestine tea ceremonies, with Dutch traders at Dejima fluttered in secret audiences with the emperor's envoys. Each rustle is a vote cast of promise, made a secret pact upheld. You fold your fan closed with a final click, the lacquered ribs aligning like a barricade against unwanted ears. In your hand, you carry the echo of every unspoken agreement forged under lantern light, every coded plea etched in pigment and whisper. Fans in Edo weren't mere accessories. They were instruments of governance, carriers of policy, and guardians of loyalty. Tonight, you've seen how a simple prop could steer the course of history one flick at a time. You lift the fan to eye level and let the lantern glow dance across its painted symbols, an intimate slideshow of obscure iconography that once spoke volumes in hushed parlors. Above, we've courted color floral codes, poetic whispers, and even post-fire rebirth. Now it's time to decode those lesser-known emblems that only the most attentive patrons recognized. Imagine having an emoji keyboard carved into delicate bamboo ribs where every crane, sparrow, or tortoise carried a specific message, Edo's private hieroglyphics, fluttering secrets from hand to hand. The first symbol you notice is a pair of cranes in mid-flight, their wings outstretched against a misty blue background. Cranes symbolize longevity and fidelity, borrowed from ancient Chinese lore that staged the first recorded crane wedding back in 650 CE during the Tang dynasty's heyday. In Edo, displaying cranes on a fan was like announcing, "I'm here for the long haul," the relationship equivalent of sliding into DMs with a "we should talk future goals" opener. You can almost hear the soft scrape of brush dragging white pigment followed by minute lines etched for every feather. Historians still debate whether courtesans chose crane motifs to reassure wealthy patrons of lifelong loyalty, or simply because the birds looked elegant mid-flap. But either way, the symbolism soared through Edo's pleasure quarters like a winged promise. You run your finger over the surface and pick up a faint texture where lead-white pigment mixed with crushed scallop shells to create an opalescent sheen, an unexpected detail that makes cranes shimmer as if breaking through morning mist. Strange fact, some artisans deliberately sprinkled powdered mica between layers so that under torchlight the cranes looked like they were gliding through a starry sky. 3 light jokes later, about fans doubling as cosmic bird-watching scopes, about needing in-app purchases to unlock new crane emojis, about being crane certified on dating profiles, you fold and unfold the fan, watching the cranes appear and vanish like gentle ghost dancers. Below the cranes, you spot a delicate sparrow perched on a slender bamboo stalk, its tiny form painted in warm umber strokes. Sparrows symbolized new affection and playful banter, Edo's version of a flirty poke, or that heart eyes emoji you can't resist sending at midnight. During the Kan'a era, 1624 or 1644, sparrows became popular after urban legends claimed that cheeky sparrows in Edo parked on bamboo poles would chirp love advice to overhearing couples. Historians still debate whether those stray sparrow squawks truly inspired fan art, or if court painters simply decided small birds paired well with slender bamboo motifs. But the sparrow's cultural flight endured. You chuckle at the idea of a ravenous city sparrow unpaid for its performance reviews. As you tilt the fan, you catch sight of a tiny tortoise painted near the guard sticks, its shell detailed with interlocking hexagons rendered in muted green and brown. Tortoises symbolized wisdom and stability, drawn from ancient Confucian teachings celebrating the creature's 10,000-year lifespan. In Edo's political circles, after the 1657 Meireki fire eventually gave way to the 1688 Genroku Renaissance tortoise fans were popular among bureaucrats seeking calm order after decades of chaos. You imagine sliding a tortoise-emblazoned fan across the desk at a modern strategy meeting captioned, "I've got 99 problems, but stability ain't one." Strange fact, some painters ground actual turtle shell fragments into pigments to lend authenticity. So if you ever sniffed a faint leathery scent, that was your clue. The fan meant business. Your palm presses lightly against a cluster of 5-fingered maple leaves painted in scarlet. In Edo iconography, maple leaves signaled the passage of time and the beauty of impermanence, akin to sending a subtle remember this moment snapshot rather than a permanent lock screen wallpaper. The tradition traces back to courtly autumn viewing parties in the high-end period 794 to 1105, where rustling maple groves inspired poets to pen haunting verses about fleeting love affairs. Historians still debate whether courtesans ever actually fetched real maple leaves to press between fan panels, or if they simply recreated the look with stencils. But the effect was so evocative that every flutter felt like leaves drifting across your cheeks. You breathe in the faint scent of camphor oil, and it feels like inhaling crisp autumn air. 3 light jokes dance in your mind about fans doubling as seasonal Spotify playlists, about turning your fan into a nature documentary with built-in leaf sound effects, about needing an auto fall filter on Twitter, but you tuck them away to savor the hush. Near the top edge, you spot a stylized pair of intersecting keys painted in bronze tones, a less common emblem that signified the opening of hearts and unlocking of hidden desires. Keys aren't birds or blossoms, but in Edo, they whispered, "I hold access to your secret chambers." Legend says that after the 1707 Hoei earthquake rattled, Edo collectors of rare trinkets began asking for key motifs on their fans to symbolize access to the city's rebuilt treasures. Historians still debate whether these key icons were literal references to novice courtesans gaining keys to elite okiya, or if they simply appealed to aristocratic fantasies of vault-guarded jewels. But the rarity of the motif made it all the more coveted. You trace the metallic glaze of the keys with your fingertip and feel a faint warmth, an effect achieved by mixing pigment with powdered iron filings that held residual heat from the kiln. Strange fact, old-timers claim that fans with heated key motifs were once used to discreetly warm hands during winter festivals, so recipients could boast both style and toasty digits. You laugh at the thought of combining fan fashion with DIY hand warmers. Scattered among these main symbols are tiny, almost hidden strokes: a single dragonfly for transformation, a miniature samurai helmet for courage, a crescent moon for introspection. Each could occupy an entire fan in some cases, but when bunched together, they formed a secret lexicon for the initiated. You recall above how poetic verses sometimes hid in plain sight. But here, the entire fan felt like an emoji keyboard, requiring fluency to decode more than a dozen emojis at once. You fold and refold, and each adjustment reveals new details: a concealed bellflower here, a phantom wave motif there. Bellflowers symbolized unchanging affection, and waves symbolized resilience against life's currents, like sending a ride or die badge on Valentine's Day. Historians still debate whether courtesans commissioned entire fan sets to match seasonal iconography or mixed motifs freely, but either way the possibilities were endless. You muse that, in modern terms, Edo's fans had more customization options than any smartphone cover. Finally, you notice the tiniest motif of all, a single cicada shell adhered to the fan's tip, representing rebirth and metamorphosis. Cicada shells littered Edo's summer gardens, and legend held that finding one beneath your pillow meant good fortune, but incorporating the literal shell into fan art was as rare as an undefeated sumo shogun. Strange fact, a handful of surviving fans still bear actual casings, their hollow chirp echoing faintly when tapped a built-in ASMR trigger before the term even existed. You can't help but smile at the idea of fans offering micro-tingles centuries before YouTube ear whisper channels. As you tuck the fan closed one last time, you feel the echo of an entire pictographic universe tucked within your palm. Every crane, sparrow, tortoise, or cicada shell whispered a silent narrative, promises of forever invitations to play vows of stability, calls to transform. And in a world where words might betray you, these icons carried your truths across crowded rooms without a single syllable. You slide the fan back into its sheath, the paper muffling that reassuring click, and you carry with you the hush of iconographic secrets unfolding at your fingertips. In the tapestry of Edo's painted fans, the obscure held as much power as the obvious every tiny symbol, another heartbeat in the city's secret life. You cradle the fan in both hands, its delicate paper whispering against your palms as you trace the faint outlines of painted scenes that might mean anything or nothing at all. Above, you've glimpsed coded gestures and hidden verses. Now you're stepping into the gray area where art and espionage collide. Imagine standing at the dawn of the Meiji Restoration in 1868, when samurai swords gave way to military bands and kimonos met frock coats, and wondering if those painted fans you see are secret dispatches or simply pretty souvenirs meant to dazzle Western dignitaries. Historians still debate whether painted fans served practical codes or were merely ornamental. You lift the fan toward a fading lantern glow and notice how its slats are slightly misaligned, a subtle imperfection that some claim was an intentional signal indicating urgency. A strange fact drifts into your mind. During Commodore Perry's Black Ships expedition in 1853, some courtesans reportedly slipped fans bearing coded invitations into the hands of American sailors, hoping to secure lucrative introductions to port officials. Others say those stories were spin concocted by eager storytellers. The result is a swirl of rumor and possibility was that slanted alignment, a covert instruction, or simply the result of a weary craftsman bolting through orders to meet increasing tourism demand. You fold and unfold the fan slowly, each movement sounding like a soft snap in the silent tea house corridor. You feel the faint grain of the bamboo handle beneath your fingertips, worn smooth by countless folds and unfolds, and you almost expect to hear a hidden mechanism click into place. Above in the earlier chapters, the fan's handle might have housed secret compartments for love notes. Here, some claim those pockets hid miniature compasses or coded barometers to alert patrons of incoming patrols. Historians still debate whether these pockets ever truly existed or were merely fanciful legends perpetuated by collectors chasing mythical rarities. A whiff of ground camphor rises as you breathe in, close grounding you in sensory reality. You remember that camphor oil was prized both to repel insects and to preserve pigments, another potential double duty that blurs the line between practicality and showmanship. Strange fact, an eccentric fan maker in late Edo once mixed pulverized cicada shells into his lacquer, believing the shell's natural micro-hollows would help the paint grip better and age more gracefully. Patrons who purchased those fans found themselves literally carrying a piece of summer's chorus in their sleeves, though whether that was genius or gimmick remains up for debate. You glimmer at a painted scene of a kabuki performer mid-leap, the actor's crimson robe trailing behind him like a calligraphic flourish. Some scholars argue that those kabuki motifs were a public advertisement for upcoming performances, a sort of Edo-era poster, while others insist they served as markers for safe houses where actors and patrons could meet out of the public eye. A light joke flits through your mind about fans as the original event flyers or hot ticket notifications. But you tuck it away because here every flap carries weight beyond humor. Your eyes follow a trail of tiny painted dots near the guard sticks, an arrangement some believe corresponded to a piece of music fans could play a melody when fanned at the right speed, each dot marking a beat in a clandestine jig. You bend closer, almost coaxing the fan open to see if it will hum under your touch like a hidden music box. Historians still debate whether any fan actually emitted a tune or if that was simply the stuff of barroom yarns spun by sake-drunk storytellers. Either way, the mystery adds a delicious thrill to every flutter. You shift position, pressing the fan against your cheek, feeling the paper's fine weave warm against your skin. The fragrance of aged mulberry mingles with the faint musk of sandalwood, conjuring memories of earlier rendezvous in bamboo gardens. Above, you've seen fans used to guide lovers to koi ponds. Here, some whisper that certain fans bore embedded magnetite fragments, steering iron-inked needles glued inside guard sticks and turning the fan into a covert compass. You chuckle at the image of a tea house clandestine navigation device, but you can't help wondering if there's a grain of truth buried in that tale. A sudden breeze drifts through sliding doors, lifting the fan's tip to reveal a miniature inscription in gold leaf, so thin it catches the fallback light like a pinprick of sunrise. The tiny character reads, Jin Trust, and you pause. Was this a personal token of sincerity or an unspoken code indicating safe passage to an allied tea house? Some believe it marked fans made under direct imperial patronage, granting the bearer preferential service wherever they went. Others dismiss it as a marketing gimmick. Fans bearing imperial seals fetched higher prices on the open market. Historians still debate whether that gold signature ever truly denoted imperial favor or was simply a high-end brand logo. You fold the fan shut with a satisfying click, the lacquered ribs aligning in perfect harmony. You swivel to face the low table where tea and confectionery crumbs await, remembering that patrons often purchase multiple fans in one evening, each supposedly more encrypted than the last. Strange fact, rumor has it that some connoisseurs collected entire sets of fans representing the four seasons, believing that the sequence formed an overarching narrative of life, death, and rebirth, readable only by those who studied the cycle. Whether that seasonal saga actually existed or was a romantic invention remains part of the enduring debate. The soft scrape of your geta echoes against polished wood as you rise and drift toward the garden's moonlit path. You imagine the gentle snap of fans greeting each other like lovers reunited, exchanging silent gossip about your presence. Some courtesans reportedly used fans as gossip relays, passing them from one okia to another with tongues of rumor painted atop pictorial scenes. Was that a practical network for spreading news, or simply a colorful legend? Historians still debate whether fans ever formed an underground postal system, or if that idea belongs purely to romantic fiction. You pause by a lantern flickering in a stone bowl of water. The fan's reflection shimmers in the surface, the painted imagery rippling like hidden truths trying to surface. In that glassy mirror, you ask yourself, what have I truly held? A tool of clandestine communication or a delicate ornament designed to delight the eye? That question hovers in the humid air unanswered, but potent. Before you slip the fan back into its silk sheath, you brush your thumb along the edge of a painted wave, a motif some claim signified coded instructions to ride the tide of change, a message especially poignant as Edo transformed under Western influence. Others argue it was merely a popular decorative element inspired by famous ukiyo-e prints flooding the city. Historians still debate whether wave fans carried subversive slogans or rode on the coattails of pulp art trends. Either way, the ambiguity is the fan's greatest mystery. You fold the fan into your kimono, the paper's soft crackle, a final echo in the empty corridor. In your hand, you carry not just painted slats, but centuries of speculation and story rumors and revelations folded into every crease. Whether these fans were secret spy devices or sumptuous showpieces may never be certain. But the thrill of that unanswered question pulses with every flutter. And so you walk on into the night, fan tucked away, your mind abuzz with conspiracies and curiosities. In the flickering lantern light, you sense the lingering echo of countless debates, arguments held in whispered tones behind shoji screens, where every painted fan might have spelled out a revolution or merely waved goodbye to a summer's breeze. You settle back into the corner of the lacquered tea house, the hush wrapping around you like a silk scarf, and you lift your fan to reveal another layer of silent conversation this time, the choreography of discreet message exchanges. Imagine a crowd of kimono-clad patrons pressing in under the glow of red lanterns, and yet through subtle flips, taps, and tilts, entire dialogues pass unnoticed by anyone without the right eye for the code. It's like being in a crowded chat room where only a handful know the private emojis. You start with a simple gesture, holding the fan closed and resting its spine against your cheek. In Edo, that meant I'm listening, an invitation for your companion to speak without fear of eavesdroppers. At the 1716 commencement of the Kyoho reforms, an era of austerity and behavioral regulation, courtesans perfected these moves to evade moral police who prowled Yoshiwara's lantern-lit streets. Historians still debate whether these reforms curtailed fan language or merely refined it into an art form. But legends insist that every tilt and flick grew sharper under scrutiny. Next comes the single finger slide. You let your index finger run along the guard stick, almost imperceptibly signaling, I approve or continue. A strange fact, some fans contained tiny grooves carved into the stick just to guide that finger. So the touch was consistent across different fans, like installing haptic feedback in a modern touchscreen. You trace the groove, now marveling at how a simple sensory cue could convey reassurance more intimate than a whispered yes. Then there's the double fan flourish. You open one fan halfway and layer another on top, fanning both simultaneously in a slow, deliberate rhythm. That move broadcasted, follow my lead, a call for your partner to take the next step, perhaps to a hidden alcove or a moonlit garden path. Courtesans taught this flourish during the Genroku era's heyday, 1688-1704, when Okiya schools competed to outdo each other in expressive mastery. Patrons who failed to catch the rhythm risked social embarrassment. Imagine missing a beat in a viral dance challenge only with real-world consequences. You fold and refold your fan, then place it behind your ear as though tucking back a stray lock of hair. In public, that quiet action meant I need privacy, a graceful way to deflect unwanted attention without raising your voice. You inhale the faint scent of plum oil still lingering on the paper, a reminder that sometimes fragrance itself was part of the code layered into gestures to strengthen the signal. 3 light jokes flicker about fans as Edo's original noise-canceling headphones, about upgraded privacy mode, about needing a do not disturb sign, but you tuck them away to honor the moment's subtlety. As voices murmur around you, you spot a geisha at the far end of the room. She lifts her fan briskly, letting it whisper against her lips twice. That silent tap-tap, barely audible over the clink of porcelain, signified urgency. Help me depart quickly. A strange but true tidbit, some fans housed a concealed whistle in the guard sticks, so a tap on the side sent a faint shriek echoing down the corridors, an unspoken alarm system before electric buzzers existed. You lean in, almost expecting to hear that shrill call, the tension prickling your skin like static. Your fingers drift to the fan's edge where a series of painted dots run in a row. In public view, this sequence-encoded meeting coordinates the number of dots matched a tea house table number and their spacing mapped the time, each gap representing a quarter hour. Patrons fluent in this dot dialect could arrive precisely at their secret rendezvous without uttering a syllable. Think of it as a tiny paper Venmo transaction, except instead of money, you trade ephemeral time slots under the guise of decor. A delicate flick to the left at chest height meant I wished to speak softly. You try it now, and the hush around you deepens as if the room itself is leaning in. 3 light jokes beckon about fans as ancient volume controls about muting group chats with a flick about needing remote fan app. But you let the silence speak for itself. In this dimly lit sanctuary, the quiet is your ally. You notice a patron in a nearby corner making the fan cross gesture, crossing 2 fans at a right angle and letting them rest hinges pointing outward. That posture declared this topic is closed, a polite boundary-setting cue that saved countless blushes. A strange fact, foldable pamphlets on fan etiquette from the late Edo period warned novices against overusing this move. It could be misread as a public insult. You adjust your posture consciously, avoiding any accidental cross, and remind yourself how nuanced this choreography really is. Next comes the daring vertical reveal. You hold the fan fully open but rotate it 90 degrees, so the painted surface faces perpendicular to your chest, like presenting a billboard only to those directly beside you. That was the signal for watch your step, a warning to steer clear of overheard information. You almost crack a grin at the image of a fan as a literal shield, deflecting both heat and prying eyes. During the Edo period's Great Tenmei famine, 1782-1788 food shortages made public gathering risky. Courtesans adjusted their fan codes to include hunger relief signals. Tapping twice at the fan's midpoint meant share rice, and holding the fan aloft vertically signaled grain exchange side ahead. This desperate adaptation shows how fan language could pivot from flirtation to survival. Historians still debate whether famine-era fan codes are fully documented or part of later folklore, but these stories underscore how practical and evolving the system could be. You fold your fan slowly, listening for that reassuring click that seals the silent dialogue. A final gesture remains the hidden heart-open sign, executed by holding the fan open at waist level, with ribs splayed just enough to form a gentle arc. It meant, I welcome you. You replicate it now, feeling the fan's paper curve like an embrace. The layered meaning feels profound, as if in that gentle swoop you've crossed a threshold into trust and shared secrets. As the lanterns dim further, you tuck your fan away gingerly, the patterns of gesture still humming in the hush. You carry with you the echo of every discreet tap tilt and fold nuances, so subtle they slip past untrained eyes, yet carry worlds of intent. In Edo's pleasure quarters, mastery of these silent exchanges could elevate a simple prop to the highest ranks of intimacy and influence. You slip the fan from its silk sheath and unfold it slowly, the hush of its lacquered slats echoing like distant thunder in a silent tea house. Above, you've witnessed coded gestures and clandestine romances. Now you're stepping into the cutthroat world of courtesan rivalries, where a single stolen or defaced fan could ignite feuds fiercer than any street brawl. Imagine a time during the Tempo famine, 1833-1837, when rice shortages sent tempers sky high and courtesans fought not just for patrons but for artistic supremacy. One defaced fan could be the spark that set this simmering cauldron alight. You cradle the fan at eye level, examining the once pristine plum blossom painted at its center. Now the petals are scratched through with coarse charcoal lines, as if a jealous rival seized it in the darkened corridor and carved their contempt into its paper canvas. A strange fact flickers in your mind. Some jealous courtesans allegedly mixed powdered cat whiskers into the charcoal to ensure the defacement would never wash away a tactile signature of vengeance embedded in every brushstroke. You wince at the thought of those fine hairs catching under your thumbnail, but you can almost feel the rival's hot breath as they vowed retribution. This wasn't mere vandalism, it was theater. During the famine's worst winter of 1834, records tell of the snowfall scandal when two top-ranking oiran from rival teahouses clashed over a prized fan from the shogun's own collection. One courtesan accused the other of copying her signature iris motif, an offense akin to plagiarism in today's art world. The rival retaliated by defacing the fan mid-performance, slashing its surface in full view of dozens of patrons. Historians still debate whether the snowfall scandal was a publicity stunt masterminded by tea masters hungry for gossip, or a genuine feud born of artistic jealousy. But the uproar that followed transformed fan feuds into public spectacles. You trace the edge of the defaced iris cluster with your fingertip and feel the raised grain where charcoal has bitten into the paper, a reminder that even artistry can be weaponized. 3 light jokes bubble up about fans doubling as fight clubs, about needing referee monks to oversee fan matches, about suggesting fan-proof cases at the next guild meeting. But you tuck them away, letting the tension hold its electric charge. Beyond the vandalized iris, you spot the original curves of the fan's bamboo ribs, now dulled by rough handling. Once polished, smooth to a mirror sheen, they bear tiny gouges, evidence of a scuffle in a lantern-lit hallway. You inhale the faint scent of sandalwood mingled with burnt charcoal and jasmine oil, and it's almost as if you've stepped into that very corridor, heart pounding as torches flare and screams echo off paper walls. You recall earlier how fans guided lovers to koi ponds. Here, they guided public opinion. Patrons chose sides, clutching sponsored fans, bearing embroidered crests of favored courtesans. They waved them in spirited cheers during impromptu exhibitions, fan-flipping contests where the defamer entered under a cloud of shame and the wronged courtesan basked in triumphant applause. These spectacles drew crowds rivaling kabuki premieres, with license holders charging admission for the best seats. A strange fact: some patrons kept detailed ledgers of fan feud outcomes, as if betting on samurai duels, with stakes paid in plum wine and silk obi sashes. The defaced fan itself became a relic of scandal. It passed from okiya to tea house as a trophy displayed under glass with annotations chronicling each nick and tear. Poetry circles even composed laments for its fallen grace, verses shaded in soot-washed ink to mirror its marred beauty. You imagine scholars poring over sentimental ballads about the fan's death, treating it like the last spark of a dying star. Historians still debate whether these elegiac compositions were sincere mourning or satirical mockery disguised as high art. You close your eyes and feel the grain of the lacquered ribs beneath your palm, smooth sections gauged against rough ones where charcoal lines burst through. It's as if the fan itself bears a pulse, thumping with grudges and gossip. You almost expect the bamboo to creak in protest, whispering tales of midnight encounters where slender fingers tore at precious paper like wounded hearts. A sudden breeze drifts through the tea house window, causing the charcoal-scarred petals to flutter as if gasping for air. You shiver and recall the odd practice some jealous Okia heads employed. They'd seal the ruined fans in pine oil to preserve the evidence, then brand them with inked seals so no one could alter the damage. It was Edo's original forensic method, ensuring that the crime scene remained intact for posterity. You can nearly taste the resinous pine smoke lingering around the fan's perimeter. 3 light jokes flicker about Epson printers offering charcoal lines filters, about crowd-funded restoration projects for torn fans, about running fan forensics tutorial channels. But you let the fan's raw drama speak for itself. In this moment, its scars are a stern reminder that artistry carried as much risk as romance. As you fold the fan shut, the slats click together with a finality that seems almost judicial. You slide it back into its protective sleeve as if sealing away evidence in a case file. The hush of the tea house feels heavier, now charged with the memory of that scandalous winter and the rivalries that burned hotter than any famine-lit hearth. You stand and step onto the polished wooden floor, hearing the soft scrape of your tabby socks. Other patrons glance your way, their own fans clutched defensively as if expecting more drama to erupt. In Edo's pleasure quarters, a defaced fan was more than an insult. It was a challenge that could topple reputations and reshape alliances. And so, you leave with the weight of that ruined plum blossom pressed against your ribs, carrying with you the thrilling echo of rival feuds fought with charcoal cat whiskers and braided bamboo ribs. In a city built on artifice and allure, painted fans could spark wars in silk-lined chambers, and their scars whispered the fiercest stories of all. You stand at a dusty rickshaw stop on a sweltering summer afternoon, the air thick with the clang of newly laid railway tracks and the swirl of cotton dresses imported from London. Above courtesans once hid love notes and painted petals. Now, you're in the midst of the Meiji Restoration's whirlwind, where ancient fan traditions collided with Western modernity and either adapted or faded into museum showcases. Imagine fans sharing the stage with gas lamps, pocket watches, and the first electric telegraph. Suddenly, those oiled mulberry canvases seemed quaint next to iron bridges and tailor-made trousers. You drift past a gleaming storefront displaying Japanese umbrellas alongside folding fans painted with scenes of Mount Fuji and steam locomotives chugging through pine forests. The shopkeeper tips his cap, the kind you'd imagine an English postman wearing, and invites you inside. Inside, a half-dozen artisans stand over workbenches, but instead of hand-painting each fan, some now press designs from copper plates inked in charcoal, stamping images of cherry blossoms that look almost too perfect. Historians still debate whether this mechanization preserved fan artistry by making it more accessible or diluted its soul by eliminating the human touch. But either way, the ripple was undeniable. You reach out to feel the difference between a stamped fan and a hand-brushed one. The stamped paper feels flat and uniform like a printed souvenir you might grab at an airport kiosk, and frankly, you half expect a barcode on the back. A strange fact springs to mind. At the 1878 Paris World's Fair, Japanese folding fans were exhibited as marvels of craftsmanship. But some skeptics whispered that many displayed pieces were actual antiques masquerading as new goods. 3 light jokes later, you joke about fans wearing berets and sipping cafe au lait, about souvenir stamps being history's first hype men, about needing a vintage filter for ethnographic exhibits. You tuck the humor away, struck by how quickly tradition had to find its footing. You step into a rickety tram rattling down Ginza Boulevard, its tracks laying claim to land once reserved for samurai processions. A painted fan clutches your palm. Its design, a curious hybrid cranes and chrysanthemums wrap around a steam engine puffing toward Yokohama. The juxtaposition feels surreal, like a kimono-patterned laptop skin. You drag your thumb across the rivulets of ink and pigment, noting how the colors bleed slightly at the edges, proof that artisans still mix pigments by hand. Even as Western lithography threatened their livelihoods. On the tram, you notice office clerks reading folded summons from newly established municipal courts, their eyes flicking between legal decrees and decorative fans. Fans once used to signal meet me at the koi pond are now used to cool bureaucratic tempers in sweaty courtrooms. You inhale the faint aroma of camphor and rice paste that lingers on your fan's guard sticks and compare it to the starchy scent of printed legislation, a sensory clash as old as the era itself. A light joke winks at you. Imagine telling your boss you need to fan yourself because your workplace drama is too hot, then catching a glimpse of your superiors doing the same. Suddenly, fans become workplace equality symbols. You and your manager united under fluttering paper. You alight from the tram at the foreign settlement near Yokohama, where brick buildings house consulates sipping tea under oak trees felled from English forests. Here, fans take on fresh roles. Diplomats gift folding fans to visiting dignitaries, the painted surfaces now bearing Masonic symbols and royal crests, alongside traditional mitsudomo. A strange fact creeps in. Some of these diplomatic fans were rumored to include secret compartments for diplomatic cables. Tiny scrolls rolled up within fan guards, smuggled through customs under the guise of cultural exchange. Historians still debate whether any actual secret cables traveled this way, or if it's simply colorful rumor. But the allure of espionage certainly adds spice to every fold. You wander into a reimagined pleasure district where geishas still perform their fans, now choreographed to syncopated jazz rhythms introduced by American musicians touring the Far East. You watch a perfectly poised performer flick her fan in time with the clarinet solo, the painted cranes on her fan seeming to dance mid-flight. It's a mashup Edo elegance meets New World syncopation. You tap your foot to the beat and half expect a brass band to swing by. 3 light jokes later about fans joining speakeasy jazz ensembles, about needing earbuds clipped to your guard sticks, about fans being the true bridge between chopsticks and cocktail shakers. You marvel at how adaptable fan culture could be. Beyond the neon glow of electric lanterns, a glaring innovation compared to the subtle shimmer of mica-speckled pigments. You find a small museum room where ancient fans rest behind glass with little placards dated Edo period and early Meiji. They sit under spotlights that feel too bright, glaring at the folded art as though scolding it for not having LED bulbs. A curator stands by, earnestly describing how these fans shaped diplomatic history, but the room's silence feels like a shrine to a bygone era. Fans preserved as relics, rather than living breathers of expression. You lean in toward the display and reflect on how the Meiji transformation affects bullet arced from lacy palace gardens to urban boulevards lined with telegraph poles. Fans morphed from clandestine communicators into souvenir tchotchkes, from political tools to performance props. You can practically feel the bloodstream of history pulsing through each fan's paper and bamboo, telling stories of adaptation and survival. If you run your fingers along the display case edge, you might nearly pick up the faint hum of electric wires above a tangible link between past and present. As you step back into the humid evening air, rickshaw wheels creaking on cobblestones, you tuck the fan into your obiet's painted image of a steam locomotive, now a testament to human ingenuity, rather than a coded message of longing. You feel its cool weight against your body, a quiet reminder that even when centuries sweep away older ways, artifacts can evolve, adopting new meanings. What began as hand-brushed secrets between lovers became stamped souvenirs and diplomatic gifts, but the essence expression through delicate craftsmanship endured. You stroll down a street where flophouse geisha houses rub shoulders with Western-style cafes, and you can't help but grin at the sight of a barista offering a matcha latte alongside a display of painted fans. Patrons sip foam-topped brews while browsing fans as if flip-throughs replaced texting sessions. You imagine the first person to post their coffee and fan selfie instantly viral in Proto-Web 2.0 style. History's cycles feel dizzying. Before dusk darkens completely, you plunge your hand into your sleeve and pull out the fan one last time. You unfurl it and watch the painted train puff once more across paper clouds. It's a snapshot of change, a bridge between Edo's whispered secrets and Meiji's bold proclamations. You fold it closed slowly, savoring the mix of old camphor scent and new industrial smokiness. And as you tuck the fan back into its sheath, you carry with you the memory of an art form that refused to vanish. From palace intrigues to railway symphonies, from clandestine love songs to jazz-era flourishes, painted fans navigated every twist of history. Their painted surfaces faded, were repainted, rebranded, stamped, and then celebrated under glass. Yet they endured tiny canvases, bearing the weight of eras folded but never forgotten. You step into a sleek, white-walled gallery where the hush is almost audible, punctuated only by the soft click of your shoes on polished concrete. Above, you've traced every coded gesture, floral code, and scandalous feud. Now you're standing amid modern reinterpretations of those same painted fan motifs, reimagined as contemporary art installations. Imagine a room where enormous fan shapes, each 20 feet wide, tower over viewers. Their paper surfaces replete with digital projections of sakura petals, drifting in simulated breezes. You probably won't survive the shock of seeing centuries-old codes blown up to billboard scale, but that's the fun of it. You follow the guided path past a massive fan painted in hyper-realistic neon, each blossom rendered in fluorescent pink, so vivid it hums against your retinas. It's a homage to the 1964 Tokyo Olympics, when artists first began blending traditional motifs with post-war pop sensibilities. Historians still debate whether the Olympic fan murals were genuine cultural fusion or simply an opportunistic marketing ploy to dazzle visiting athletes. But either way, they sparked a wave of fan-inspired works that rolled across gallery openings from Shinjuku to Soho. Strange fact, one pioneering artist mixed crushed fan pigments made from recycled Edo-era scraps into his neon paints, claiming it lent ancestral resonance to the shine. You catch a faint whiff of metallic shimmer in the air as you lean closer, though you're pretty sure that's just the solvent fumes. Your fingertips graze the cool, polished edge of a cantilever display, and you feel a ghost of camphor in the ventilation breeze. A nearby piece invites you to trace its surface, a translucent fan overlaid with interactive screens that respond to your touch, each swipe revealing hidden messages in tiny gold leaf kanji. You brush your finger across a stylized phoenix motif, and the screens flicker to life with animated embers dancing up the ribs of the fan. 3 light jokes form in your mind about fans sneezing out sparks, about needing oven mitts for modern art, about updating your phone's background to ember mode, but you bite them back, captivated by the hush of innovation. Further along, you encounter an installation of floating fan fragments suspended in midair by nearly invisible wires. Each shard bears a single flower motif, a wisteria here, a camellia there, painted in delicate watercolor washes that bleed ever so slightly under spotlights. You step between them as if walking through a blossom storm petals, brushing your cheek with faint mist. The artists cite the 2010 Venice Biennale's Japan Pavilion as a major milestone when fan fragments first graced the global art stage, but historians still debate whether that showcase elevated fan art or simply commodified it for Instagram. You shiver with delight as a wisp of simulated fan breath sighs across your neck, an ASMR moment so perfectly engineered it gives you goosebumps. You continue to a darkened alcove where a single enormous circle of paper hangs from the ceiling like a moon. Its surface flickers with looping video of artisans hand-painting fans in slow motion, each brushstroke magnified to cosmic proportions. A low, pulsing soundtrack mixed from recorded brush hairs, scratching paper hums beneath the visuals, and you feel your heart sink to its rhythm. Strange fact, some curators claim that the soundtrack's frequency matches the natural resonance of bamboo, so the vibrations literally align viewers' breath with the art. You inhale deeply, letting your lungs fill in time with the gallery's heartbeat. In the next room, a minimalist work features a single white fan mounted on a pedestal, its ribs opening and closing in a robotic sequence. The motion springs from a 2018 collaboration between a Kyoto craftsman and a robotics engineer, a fusion that sent ripples through both tech and art circles. Historians still debate whether that mechanized fan honored tradition's precision or desecrated it by removing human imperfection. But the piece's steady rhythm feels almost hypnotic. You reach out as if to steady it, an impulse that gets hilariously quashed by a "Please do not touch" plaque, but you swear you feel the faint hum of gears in your palm. Your path leads you to a wall lined with framed paintings. Each one replicates a historic fan face motif in acrylic on canvas. Cranes, sparrows, tortoises, waves, all rendered in blocky pop art palettes that clash so vibrantly they practically yell at you. You note a plaque crediting the 2002 World Cup opening ceremony for inspiring the sports-themed reinterpretations, but historians still debate whether those paintings were genuine tributes to fan heritage or just a hackneyed trend. A strange detail catches your eye. One artist speckled real shell powder into her acrylic, recreating that ancient crushed scallop shimmer. You lean so close you can almost taste the salt of vanished seaside festival breezes. Nearby interactive tablets invite visitors to compose their own virtual fan face choosing colors, coded for love longing or loyalty. And then watch as their designs are projected onto a communal digital fan. You hesitate recalling all the careful choices codified by Edo Courtesans. You pick a pale indigo wash-safe, yet expressive, and the screen responds with a fluttering blossom animation. 3 light jokes tempt you to slap on neon vermilion and call it a selfie, but you resist musing that maybe subtlety still rules even in virtual realms. As you move on, the gallery shifts into a serene Zen garden, where overhead a grid of real fans hangs horizontally. Sunlight filters through their painted slats, casting intricate floral shadows on gravel patterns raked into concentric circles. The space feels like a cathedral of fan art, each shadow a silent hymn. Legend says this installation was first attempted during the 1995 Kobe Art Festival to commemorate the city's resilience after the Great Hanshin earthquake. A tribute sprawled across the garden sand. Historians still debate whether the project truly captured the earthquake's spirit or simply mirrored it. But as you trace the shadows with your toes, you feel a grounding comfort in the shifting patterns. Your footsteps lead you out to an open-air courtyard where a single wooden bench faces a fountain shaped like a fan leaf. Water jets arc in fan-like droplets, and the fountain's base is carved with stylized fan ribs. You sit and close your eyes, letting the soft spray mist your face. The sound is a lullaby of whispered arcs, like fans fanning fans in an endless echo. You smell a delicate waft of citrus yuzu water infused to mirror the Mereki fan's yuzu oil spritz. It tickles your nose, bringing you back to that first time you inhaled hope after ashes. Before you leave, you pause by the gift shop where many fans printed with gallery highlights are sold alongside artisanal perfumes named after fan motifs: Sakura Whisper Phoenix, Ember, Wisteria Haze. You almost pick one up, tempted by the idea of carrying that gallery's hush into your apartment. 3 light jokes tease you about replacing your air freshener with a fan fragrance, about setting your smartphone to gallery mode, about fans as the world's original merch. But you simply smile and slip out. Stepping into the fading afternoon light, you fold your own fan freshly painted with hyper-real neon blossoms and feel its transformation across centuries in your hand. Once it carried secret poems through Yoshiwara's lantern-lit lanes. Now it shimmers under LED and sunlight, alike a bridge between feudal courtship and global contemporary art. You tuck it into your satchel, the gentle weight, a reminder that even as contexts shift from pleasure quarters to metropolitan galleries, the silent language of painted fans endures. And so, as you drift away from the gallery's hush, you carry with you echoes of every projection, every shadow, dance, every robotic flutter. The modern artistic legacy of Edo's courtesan fans isn't just preserved in museums, it's alive in every new brushstroke projection and whispered code that pulses through today's art world, waiting for you to unfold its next secret. You unfold your fan one last time, feeling the whisper of aged paper and lacquered ribs like a promise held between your palms. Above, you've traced every coded gesture, floral sonnet, and clandestine liaison. Now you sense the pulse of every secret ever carried on these painted faces. Imagine the dawn of the Taisho era in 1912 when light jazz drifted through Tokyo streets and women exchanged fans at bustling tea parties. These delicate canvases bridged generations, carrying the hushed words of Edo's pleasure quarters into modern parlors. Historians still debate whether fans maintained their secret language past that era or gradually surrendered to simpler souvenir status. But you feel their silent power humming in every fiber. You bring the fan to your cheek, the smooth curve of its slants pressing a comforting coolness against your skin. Strange fact, some late-period artisans bound tiny silver bells into the fan guards so that every gentle flutter chimed like a distant melody, a wearable orchestra of whispers. When you fan yourself, it feels like stirring an unseen choir of memories, each bell note a soft echo of lovers' vows, poets' laments, and courtiers' intrigues. You probably won't survive the rush of nostalgia like accidentally stumbling into a virtual reality simulation of every whispered secret passed down through centuries. But that's the enduring enchantment of these painted faces. As you flutter the fan slowly, you recall tasting yuzu-scented breezes, inhaling plum oil fragrances, and feeling the resonance of bamboo flecks under your fingers. These sensations blend into a tapestry of comfort and curiosity, a living relic beyond mere ornament. You chuckle quietly at the modern comparison. Today's push notifications may buzz incessantly, but a painted fan's gentle chime was ASMR before anyone had invented algorithms. 3 light jokes later about using fans as mood ring notifications about bamboo Fitbit trackers, counting silent sighs about subscribing to whisper alerts. You tuck the humor away, savoring how every fold and snap anchors you in a shared human longing for subtle connection. You slide your fingertips along the fan's edge, tracing the micro-carvings left by countless hands. Each nick and crease is a heartbeat preserved in lacquer, a testament to the fan's role in triumphs and tragedies alike. You think of the 1923 Great Kanto earthquake, when many fans breathed their last in collapsing tea houses and teetering okia. Legend holds that survivors pressed fans to their mouths to filter dust-turning art into lifeline. Historians still debate whether that tale is fact or lore, but the image endures. Painted faces carried hope, even as the ground trembled beneath them. You fold the fan closed with a gentle click, a punctuation mark on centuries of whispered dialogues. In that click, you hear the murmured sighs of sleepless nights, ease the rustle of silk kimonos guided by hidden codes, and the faint hum of bells woven into painted ribs. You carry it home tucked into your kimono or satchel, a silent companion richer than any voiced conversation. And so, as you place the painted fan aside, you realize Its true mystique lies not in the pigments or poems, but in the hush it creates the space between words where longing and memory intertwine. These painted faces fade and reform across eras, Edo Meiji, Taisho, and beyond, but their silent power endures in every gentle flutter. Now slow your breath and let the quiet settle around you like the final petals drifting from a blossom at dusk. Feel the weight of that painted fan in your hand, its smooth surface soft against your fingertips. Let every fold echo a softened heartbeat, and every snap a comforting rhythm guiding you toward rest. The lanterns have dimmed, the whispering crowds have faded, and now all that remains is your gentle inhale, the hush of evening air, and the silent tale carried by painted ribs. Imagine the fan's cool breeze wrapping you in calm, drawing you deeper into serene twilight until time slows and the world becomes a soft, muted painting of dream. Hush now. Let your thoughts drift like lanterns across water. Allow the subtle melody of ancient bells woven into bamboo to lull you until sleep's gentle tide carries you away. Rest knowing that every secret ever whispered on a painted fan finds its peace here in quiet slumber. End of script. Sweet dreams.